Alright, here's a video on what you need to install a Yamaha Warrior carburetor into a 2005 or similar Yamaha Wolverine 350. This is the original carb that came out of the 350. It was actually internally damaged by the previous owner, who installed the main jet into the nozzle way too tight, and it could not be removed. It actually stripped the housing, so therefore it is useless. It cannot be repaired. So this is the Yamaha Warrior carburetor. I have them side by side so you can kind of see the difference. Very similar, but also different as well. Now, the biggest advantage of going with the Yamaha Warrior carburetor is the accelerator pump. Accelerator pump on the Warrior actually, it's missing in this particular car, but it should be right here. And when you apply the gas, it pushes down on this little plunger. The plunger actually goes through the bowl, squirts fuel up out of here, which is back into the carburetor and out this little nozzle right here. And you get much better response with the accelerator pump. So if your Wolverine carburetor is bad, I would recommend replacing it with a Warrior carb. Now, there are a couple different types of Warrior carbs. There's a couple different variations, shall I say. The most obvious variation is from an 88 to early 90s. They had dual throttle cables. This is a single throttle cable. This is actually from the mid to late 90s. The dual throttle cables, basically one throttle cable comes in through the original location, one comes in the top. I haven't tried one, I'm not sure if they work, but somebody on the internet told me to stay away from those, and since everything you read on the internet is true, I'm going to go with it. Now, important to note, even with the single cable Warrior carbs, there's different ones. The best one, in my opinion, is a 1987. It was only made for 1 year. The difference between the 87s, the easy way to spot them, is they have dual vent ports. This one has a single, this one's blocked off. The 87 is the only year that has the dual vent ports. Another way you can tell is the idle speed adjuster screw is bigger. So again, 87 specifically is the one you want to use in the Wolverine. I have read that you can use this carburetor. I did not have good luck with it, and I'll tell you why. When you're using the original Wolverine throttle cable, this length right here, okay, this is a Warrior throttle cable. Now, the Wolverine cable is shorter, so when you use this, the cable ends up being up here, and it can't, in my opinion, stretch down to here. On the 87, the distance in the mount is actually more narrow. I have the 87 installed inside the machine. Let's see if I can show you what I'm talking about. And where is this thing? Now, it's a lot shorter on the 87. Therefore, if you want to use the original cable, you got to use the 87. Now, I believe if you change to a mid-90s Warrior carb, you could use a Warrior throttle cable. I haven't tried it, so I can't comment on it, but it should work. Another couple things you need to know. This is the intake manifold. This side mounts to the motor. It's flanged. This side, rubber, slides over. Now the Warrior is bolted. So you need to get a Warrior intake manifold. Very easy to change. Let's see. Unbolted from the engine. Horrible view here. You get the point here. Let's see. Disaster. Okay. Unbolted from the engine. Bolt the other one right up. Horrible view, I apologize. So that's the important thing. Important to note. In order to use the Warrior carb on the Wolverine, you have to replace the intake manifold. Again, 2 bolts come off, and the new Warrior carb is flanged on both sides. One side bolts up here, and the other side is the original bolts up in the motor. Now the other tricky thing is bolting up the intake. Now, the original tube, intake tube, that goes from the carburetor to the stock airbox, I could not get to work, because when you put the new Warrior carburetor on, if you mount the intake tube on the carburetor and then you go to mount the airbox, it pulls off. It's too short. So then I bought a Warrior intake tube, and that's way too long. So the quick fix is put a couple spacers. You got one spacer under here. It's about a 1/2 inch nylon spacer. You can get at a hardware store, and you got to get a longer bolt. So you get a longer bolt, 3 longer bolts, one here, one here, one here, 3 1/2 inch spacers, done. So just to recap, get yourself a 1987 carburetor, get yourself a Yamaha Warrior intake manifold, they're all the same, and get yourself 3 nylon spacers and 3 longer bolts and washers, and you are good to go.